Today I would like to talk to you on the subject, why ethics is important. Let me ask you a question in the audience today. How many of you think ethics is important, huh? Okay, everyone I think said that. In fact, if you didn't, I'm not sure why you're in this session. Although maybe you should be in this session, huh? How many of you have ever had someone be unethical towards you? Remember the feeling, what you just sensed and what you begin to feel? The reason that we teach ethics in your notes is because there's a gap between the ideal, in other words, the standard we think people should follow, and the real, the standard that people follow. In other words, in our culture and our society, there's a huge gap between the ideal ethical standard that people kind of feel everybody should abide by and the real ethical standard, the one in which we do abide by. So I want to define ethics, and I want to talk to you about why it is so important. Ethics is a discipline dealing with good and evil and with moral duty, moral principles and practices. Ethics has an inside and an outside dimension. And the gap, when I talked about the gap between the ideal and the real, the gap is between the principles, the ethical principles that we believe in, and the ethical practices that we engage in. In other words, we have a higher standard in our principles than we do in our practices. Several years ago, Alexander Solzhenitsyn gave a commencement address at Harvard University, and the title of his address was A World Split Apart. He concluded that our world is not split over the views of East versus West, or communism versus capitalism, or socialism versus free market system, but simply over a person's beginning point in determining what was right and determining what is wrong. And in the business community, we have a lot of business giants that are ethical infants. And it's created a tremendous gap, and people are asking themselves, what's happening in our culture? When I wrote the book, There's No Such Thing as Business Ethics, it really had its seed of me writing it out of a conversation I had with Larry Kirschbaum in New York City. We were having dinner together, and he oversees the book division of Time Warner AOL. And he sat down with me and he said, John, with what's happening in the corporate world, he said, I would like you to write a book on business ethics. And I looked at Larry and I said, I can't do it. He said, why can't you do it? I said, Larry, there's no such thing as business ethics. I said, it's just ethics. You either have it or you don't. And if you have ethics, it works in business. If you don't have ethics, it doesn't work in business. And I'll never forget, a big old light kind of came on his face, and he said, John, that'll be the title of the book. There's no such thing as business ethics. And that is the title of the book. And again, one more time, somebody else gave me a great idea. Some of my best thinking has been done by other people. My wife said the other day, said, John, all of your thinking has been done by other people. Oh, not that bad, but pretty bad. Time magazine